Hey, what is going on guys? RZ Stealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the new sleeper OP underrated or underplayed things so far in patch 8.15. So first up here is going to be Vel'koz, and Vel'koz himself I think is very underrated for this patch, but there's also a new rune and build setup going around on Vel'koz that is really underrated as well. So Vel'koz did get directly stronger. I think 2 patches ago, his Q got buffed, the AP ratio got increased by 0.2%, which is actually really big for Vel'koz's Q because it's a pretty high damage ability on a very low cooldown. So a 0.2 increase on that is actually very significant. Now for the build on Vel'koz, or for the build and rune setup, a master tier player in Korea has been running this glacial augment and then going for items that synergize with glacial augment like the GLP as well as Twin Shadows. A few Korean pro players have also tried this out in solo queue. Now let's take a look at why this setup can work on Vel'koz. So Vel'koz is a champion who doesn't really lack damage. Every single ability in Vel'koz's kit deals damage. What he does struggle with though is being dove on in team fights or hitting his own skill shots, because all of his abilities are skill shots. So by buying these more utility items in the GLP and the Twin Shadows, it does allow you to kite a lot better if you're getting dove on, or if there's champions that are trying to engage on you, then just slowing them down by an insane amount with your GLP and Twin Shadows is going to help you kite out team fights. You can also pop the Twin Shadows to look for picks, and you can also pop it just to slow the enemy down so that you can ensure that you get a full combo off on them. Now another thing to notice about the rune setup is that you want to take Ingenious Hunter there in the domination tree. This is going to be really good because it's going to lower the cooldown there of your Twin Shadows and of your GLP. So this is just super beneficial. Once you do get a few stacks on that Ingenious Hunter, your actives are going to be on a very short cooldown, and you're going to be able to benefit a ton from the glacial augment there if you do run that Ingenious Hunter. And then after you do end up going for your Twin Shadows and for your GLP, you want to grab the Liandry's, and the Liandry's in this build path is just perfect because you're always going to be benefiting from the Liandry passive there, getting the double damage because the enemies are going to be slowed for pretty much all the time. Your Q is a slow, your ult is a slow, you're going to be slowing them with your active, so you're always going to be getting the double damage there from the Liandry's, and this 3 item spike here on Vel'koz just gives him a really nice mid game. The build path is also a lot cheaper than your traditional like Ludens into Morello or Ludens into Death Cap, so you are going to be spiking earlier on into the game with this build path. So if we take a look at a top lane pick right now, Rumble is a very underrated pick in my opinion for a few different reasons. So in the meta right now, Zed, Talon, and Yasuo are picked around 25% of the time in the mid lane. In 25% of your games, you're gonna have an AD mid lane champion. So Rumble is great. He's a great fit into a lot of compositions right now. If you do end up having an AD mid, an AD jungle, and your AD carry, then if you're playing an AD top laner, the enemy's just going to stack a ton of armor, and it's going to be very hard for you to succeed if the game does reach mid to late. So having Rumble in your champion pool for this patch and for this meta, I think is really good, and in my opinion, he is the best AP top laner that you can play right now. So a jungler that's doing a lot better now over these past few patches is Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai ended up getting direct buffs, I think it was 2 patches ago now, and those direct buffs were to her bonus AD ratios. And what this means on Rek'Sai now is that if you can get a few kills in the early game, if you can get a snowball going, and if you can grab your AD items, then you're going to be able to snowball even harder now because of those bonus AD ratio increases. So if you can play Rek'Sai well in the early game, if you can use her unique gank paths to just set up kills, then I think she's a great pick, and you can have a ton of success with Rek'Sai because she is one of the stronger early game junglers, and the early game is just a lot more important for this patch. So a support right now that I think is very underrated for this patch is Sona. Sona has been receiving a few indirect buffs over these past few patches. We did see Athene's buffs, I think it was 3 patches ago now, and that's super good for Sona because she's always been one of the best Athene's users. In this patch, we did see a change to support items to where you're now only able to take 2 potions in the laning phase, so playing a support like Sona or Nami or Soraka who does have built-in can sustain is a lot better for this patch because you are going to be able to sustain up much better than most other champions. With Morgana and Fiddle getting nerfed in this patch, and then with crit AD carries getting buffed here, the meta is just shaping out a lot better for Sona now. Sona's a support who does thrive a lot more with these AD carries who are going to scale pretty well into the late game. If you got a Sona with someone like a Twitch or a Jinx or a Caitlyn, and they hit their 2 to 3 item spike, you're going to be able to do a really good job at protecting them in the mid to late game, keeping them safe, and just buffing them up with your Athenes and with your Ardent Sensor. So I just think that with these AD carries coming back now and with certain changes over the past few patches, Sona is a much better pick down in the support role. And then an AD carry pick who does benefit a lot from these heal and shield supports coming back into the meta here is Twitch. Twitch did get indirectly buffed in this patch with Stormrazor as well as Runins getting a cost decrease, and I think that Twitch is definitely one of the AD carries who benefited the most from the AD carry item changes just because Twitch spikes off of 2 items so well. Most other crit AD carries do need 3 items to really hit a good mid to late game power spike, but because Runins just synergizes so well with Twitch and because Stormrazor is also a great item for him, he does hit that 2 item spike, and once you do get Stormrazor and Runins on Twitch, you can really start to take over in the mid game. And if you do have one of those supports who can just peel for you and keep you alive, then you're gonna be able to have a lot more success with Twitch in this patch than you would in previous patches. And then another reason to why I think Twitch is really good right now is because he's a really good pick into Jhin, and Jhin is sitting at the highest pick rate right now in this patch for any AD carry at around 30%. The reason to why Twitch can do well into Jhin is because Twitch can do a really good job at just punishing Jhin if he is using his force shot like incorrectly during the laning phase. What you can do as Twitch is on your base when you are level 6 or just any time on your base, you can go into stealth coming back to lane, and once Jhin does use his force shot like on a creep or something, then you can pop out a stealth there and you pretty much guarantee to win the trade against Jhin. He's not going to be able to trade back against you, and you can just do this throughout the game. If you end up getting a kill on Jhin in the laning phase and he's just farming his side lane, you can just go into stealth, wait for him to use a force shot on a minion, and then just pop out a stealth and burst him out really quickly. Jhin cannot beat Twitch in a straight up 1v1, and it just allows Twitch to do a great job at just popping out a stealth and picking him off throughout the game. So another mid lane pick here that is a great counter to a lot of the most picked mid laners in this patch is Malzahar. Malzahar has been a pick that I've been using over the past few patches now as a great counter pick to Zoe, also a pretty good counter pick to LeBlanc as well as Vladimir. Those 3 champions there, Zoe, LeBlanc, and Vladimir, are 3 picks that I feel like people complain about the most as being just super strong picks and very hard champions to deal with in solo queue, but Malz can do a great job against all 3 of them. All 3 of these champions need to get pretty up close to deal their damage. Vlad needs to dive onto the backline in a team fight to be successful. LeBlanc needs to get up into your face and use her W to deal damage. And then with Zoe, she also needs to get pretty up close, not as close as a Vladimir or LeBlanc to be successful, but she still does need to get into your ultimate range in order to deal damage. And it just makes Malz a really good pick, especially if you can just get past the early game, get to your mid game. He can do a really good job at just shutting those champions down in mid-game team fights. If you're just using your ultimate on them whenever they do try to make a play, then you're gonna have great success against these picks in solo queue. And then Malz is an even better pick into Zoe because of his passive and his voidlings. Your passive is going to do a great job at just not getting hit by Zoe's bubble, and then your voidlings do a really good job at blocking Zoe's Q damage. If you do for some reason end up getting hit by a Zoe bubble, you can spawn your voidlings, and your voidlings are going to get in the way of the Zoe Q a lot of the time. So if you're spawning your voidlings at the correct time, when you do notice Zoe is going in for a Q, you can block her damage and you can just do a great job at shutting her down. And then the final pick here for this video is going to be another mid laner here, and it's going to be Zilean. So Zilean is a pick that we did see in LCS this past week, and he's also a pick that is very underrated for solo queue for the current meta. Zilean does a great job against these assassin picks like the Zed, the Talon. He can just do a great job at shutting them down in the mid game there because of his ultimate. He also does have really good shove with his Q, so he can also do a good job at just not allowing these champions to roam in the early game. Your Q just gives you pretty much insta shove there, so you just use your Q on the minion wave and you can keep the Talon, the Zed, and the Yasuo in lane so they can't roam around and affect other lanes. So that is going to be all for this video, guys. These are a bunch of champions here that I think definitely should be played more in this patch. They're not getting played very much at all in 8.15, but they're strong champions right now that I think can work really well for this meta. So that being said, guys, if you did enjoy this video, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you've yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.